Welcome back to Golioth. Today we're talking about remote procedure calls, or RPCs, as you'll often see them annotated throughout our site. A remote procedure call is basically when you send a command and optionally some kind of payload to a remote device. In our case, it's going to be an ESP32 that we're working with here, and it does something with that data, and then it sends a result back to you. This is useful in a lot of different scenarios, many that I can't even imagine yet, honestly. This is a new one for me. I had never really seen this before, but it is available today on the Golioth Console. You can go and try it out, and we're going to show an example here. So let's actually go over to the Golioth Console. Actually, before we do that, this is the little device we're working on here, my little ESP32 junk board. It's really not going to do much, so I'm going to take it off screen here. But what it's doing is already connected. It's actually running the ESP-IDF SDK, which we recently released here at Golioth. As you see, it is online. It's connected to my Wi-Fi. It's synced up, and it last connected a couple seconds ago. I can go and reload it here and see that it's still connected, but it's not much has been happening with it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and send it a method and then a parameter. So in this case, what we're doing is we're basically going to be sending it a command, which is, in this case, it's called double, and then we're going to send it a value, and it's going to return the value in a 2x way to us. So let's go and do that sort of thing. So we're going to say double. We're going to give it a number. Let's go with 37. This should be an int. We're going to call the method. And then what we see here is that it took 624 milliseconds round trip to get it back out there, and then the return result is 37 times 2. If you are wondering, yes, that is correct. So this is not the only thing, but let's go and take the let's take a look at what is actually happening here in the code. So ESP-IDF is a SDK that we just released a couple weeks ago, built on top of FreeRTOS, works great with Espressif products, ESP32 being one of them. It also works on the C5, all the C2, C3, all the ones that are out there. And but the basics code that we're looking at here, this is actually going to be what we're ultimately looking at. So the Golioth basics, I'm in app main. So this is one of the examples in the Golioth SDK. In app main, I have made some changes just so you know that. You'll see those probably annotated throughout here. But what we have, let me get rid of this. This is the value that we were looking for. So if we go back to the remote procedure call, basically we're looking for this device method, this RPC method rather, and when we see it, then we call on double, which is a function of our making that's by default in here. And so within this function, it's got a couple of parameters. It's looking for JSON. It processes the JSON, makes sure that it's legit, and then it sends back this value as a pre-formatted JSON thing. This is the return, and it's just 2 times that number that we sent through. So in this case, it was 37 multiplied by 2. That is 74, and we're good to go. So that alone is, you can do a lot with that, right? So basically, you might want to send a value down to your IoT devices, and not just one. Remember, anything that happens on the Golioth console is available on the REST API, and so you could send this to an entire suite of devices that are out in the field. Again, I'm not completely sure all of the things you could use this for, but in this case, you might be processing some kind of data, you might be sending some kind of commands. What I will say is that this is another version of building on top of LightDB state. So remote procedure call, the important things there are you're able to send the actual method, you can send the value, and you understand that it actually has run. That's how I understand RPCs. We also talked about the settings service in a previous video. So Mike and I recorded a video about that, where you're basically synchronizing across your entire fleet of devices. You might be setting at the project level, at the blueprint level, or at an individual device level. You might be saying, hey, I want the update rate to be every 10 seconds instead of every 1 second, and you can propagate that out to all your devices. Though both of those are built on top of LightDB state, which is our more raw database, that you could also build a lot of the same functionality, right? I could have a field that says, what value do you want me to double? And I could then, on the Golioth console, I could say, I could put in 37, I could have another field that the device updates, and that could be the result, which is 74. But there's less guarantee that it's actually running. And so that's why RPC is a more kind of rich feature that you might want to use in your product. We thought about some other use cases of why you might want to do this, and I will preface this, you don't have to do this. This is something we put in for as an interesting example. But what we did is a remote reset. This is something that you might want to do. When you're doing a remote reset though, you want to understand that it has definitely gotten the command and then it's going to do that sort of thing. So let's go and take a look at what this looks like in the code first. First thing is, so back down at the bottom where we registered this method, we have RPC registered double, but we also have remote reset. So if we go and run this command here on the RPC interface on the Golioth Cloud, we are going to initiate a reset. If we go and look for this function though, what is actually happening here? Well, we're receiving the same argument. I put in some silly names here of kaboom instead of reset. But we're actually calling a task because we actually want to get to this point and actually to notify the cloud that we have gotten through the RPC, and then we want to then later do the actual reset. And so what we're doing here is we then have a 10-second delay. We could make this configurable as well if we wanted to. We just kind of hard-coded that in here though. And then at the end of this, we then call ESP restart, which is a function you can call from just about any program. So let's see what this looks like in practice. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to put in remote reset. I'll remove the parameter. There is no parameter in this remote procedure call. I'm going to say call method. We should see that we verify that it's ran in 10. It's run in 1 second basically. And so basically then we set off the timer here. And what I'm going to do now is go over to the logs, and you should be able to see now we can go and watch and see that, look, it just restarted because this is what happens at the beginning of the program, right? So these are other ways you can go and verify that your device has actually done the thing you want it to do, right? It's all about understanding that this remote device is actually reacting to the things you send it, because you don't want to send a technician out into the wilderness to go and press a reset button. You might want to just send a command like this. You want to make sure the command has gotten there, and then you also want to make sure it is actually run. So let's go and run this one more time. You see that this is sending hello and then the number every 5 seconds or so. So let's go and run it again. We got that. We should see, once again, we should see the logs. So 7, 8, right? So this is actually still happening on the device. On the device, it's on that 10-second timer that we set, and now we should see the reset happening. And now we see it has reset. If we go and we monitor the device itself here, let me hit that. Oops. Let me put this down here. We'll go back. We'll run it one more time. So I can just barely run this. So we're going to run it one more time. We see it's received the reset command, and now it's actually going through its 10-second countdown. And it's getting down to actually go and run the reset. And so that is a free RTOS task that is happening. And we set that up in the code here. So that's not something that's default in the Golioth basics example, but it is something that you can go and program in. That's something that we thought would be an interesting use case around RPCs. It's, if you want to send a reset to your devices in the field, you want to make sure it's gotten the actual command. You want to be able to monitor the output. You want to make sure it's actually reset. And so we were able to showcase all of that stuff here. Now, before you freak out, you don't have to do any of this stuff. The only methods that you actually implement are chosen by you. So, like I said, in the Golioth basics example, the default one is the double. So basically 2xing so whatever number you send down. You don't even have to put that in there. These are all completely configurable by you, and so it really comes down to what kind of data do you want to send to your device, how do you want to process that data, and do you want to send something back up to the cloud. It's going to depend on your application, how you make that useful and how that actually impacts your end product, but we think that this is actually a really useful thing to have and to be able to make sure that your device is receiving the commands that you send to it. If you have any questions about it, we have a blog post associated with this. You can go and check that out. You can go and check out ESP-IDF SDK, which is something we recently released. You can also check out the settings, which is a different version of using the underlying LightDB state database. And if you have any other questions, you can always go to our forum. That's forum.golioth.io. You can go to our Discord and get some real-time help, golioth.io/discord, and you can send an email to devrel@golioth.io. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video and in the next feature.